Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Monday, November 21st. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Michigan game is in 5 days. That's all we're counting down to this week, Kevin Noon. We are here in Ann Arbor, Michigan, home of the University of Michigan. You can see the University of Michigan football stadium in the wall art behind us. We're not just making it up. We are truly in Ann Arbor right now. We're here to cover Jim Harbaugh's press conference on Monday, as well as a number of other players who are going to be expected to be speaking. It's going to be a lot to talk about with those guys. And then, of course, Tuesday, Ryan Day and the Buckeyes will have their press availability. So today, we just want to talk about what we're going to be talking about this week, some of the big storylines of the week. Let's start with injuries. And injuries are kind of one of the big storylines on both sides of this game. Michigan running back Blake Corum left the game with a knee injury against Illinois on Saturday. Came back briefly, ran, I think, one play, and then went back out and had his helmet taken away from him. What is his status going to be? But there are other guys on the team as well. Mike Morris, one of the edge rushers, Luke Schoonmaker, one of the tight ends. You know, we talk a lot about Ohio State and all their injury issues. Michigan has a number of guys who, whether they can go or not, is going to be a big story in this game this week.
Well, and the thing, too, is that Michigan, while they're 1-22 is one thing, probably doesn't have the depth that Ohio State does. At quarterback, if you sit there and you look there, okay, they're fine. I mean, but if something were to happen to J.J. McCarthy, they'd be in big trouble. At running back, okay, you got Donovan Edwards, who's been dinged up, who's missed time. So then they're having to go down to C.J. Stokes and some of the younger guys and some of the walk-ons. So depth is an issue at running back. At Blake Corum is diminished, or even worse yet, for Michigan, out. Tight end, they're already taking a hit in depth. Eric All is already out. If Luke Schoonmaker's unable to go, then there's an issue there. And then when you look at the Michigan defensive line, you talk about edge rushers, Aiden Hutchinson, David Ojabo not walking through that door. This is more of a line that works inside out. Mozzie Smith, a defensive tackle, is probably the straw that stirs that drink. So if you lose somebody like Mike Morris, then they're really going to be in trouble, because they had so much success last year against Ohio State rushing 4 and having everybody else go out there and play defense. So if you are not getting to C.J. Stroud with 4, you either say, well, we're going to just rush 4 and we're going to take the consequences of that, or you have to bring more people, and that's going to create more opportunities for Ohio State.
And then who is going to have those opportunities for Ohio State? Well, that's kind of storyline number 2 this week, because Ohio State has their own injury issues. Mayan Williams didn't play against Maryland. Travion Henderson did play, but was largely ineffective in the run game. Had a nice touchdown and a screen pass, but really didn't do a whole heck of a lot on the ground. You've got, Jackson Smith and Jigba. Will Jackson Smith and Jigba make his miraculous recovery and return this weekend? That's something you got to kind of keep an eye on. But towards the end of the game, you also lost Matt Jones, who's been starting at right guard all year. He went down, left the stadium with crutches and a boot. If he can't go and you've got Enoch Vermahi, then, starting at right guard, I don't think has made a career start. I meant to look that up and then it didn't, but I don't think he's
maybe that Michigan State COVID game,
maybe in 2020 when they were missing basically the whole offensive line. But yeah, he has played and been okay, but they haven't started him. And, that's another one where that's a lot of guys all on that offensive side of the ball, where if they can all go, that's one thing. If none of them can go, that's a whole different thing.
Right. And, we talk about Enoch Vermahi. How about Josh Fryer? I know that he's a third tackle for them. Maybe he can play inside. They cross-train all these guys. It's kind of, okay, we've got guards that can play center. We've got tackles that can play guard. We've got guards that can, guys are cross-trained, but this is going to be the biggest game of the season. Michigan's offensive line is one of the best in the nation. Whatever you want to say about Michigan, what your feelings are, and if you're watching this, more than likely, you don't have a lot of warm and fuzzy feelings about Michigan, but, real recognizes real, and their offensive line is real good. So, you sit there and you look at that situation, if you're going line against line, and then their defensive line may have some issues. So, for Ohio State, Dallin Hayden had himself a remarkable game. He had a remarkable game. What dose of Mayan Williams are we going to see, if any? I guarantee you he's not, in my opinion, he's not going to be on anything lower than game time decision. Mm-hmm. The gamesmanship is going to be there. There is no reason a couple hours before. I mean, it's not like Jim Harbaugh and the Michigan coaches are going to be able to say, well, we're going to change the game plan here 90 minutes before the game, 3 hours before the game. But there's no reason to tip your hand in that type of situation. Offensive line, certainly something that is concerning. And I know a lot of people have had issues with where the run blocking has been. I mean, I think that people have been concerned about what it was that Matt Jones was doing. There's some concern. DeJuan Jones wasn't moving around as well as he had before coming off. He did play in that Maryland game. He did not play the week before. You have to wonder, nobody's at 100%. You have to wonder how close to 80% he is at that point. And, if there's something wrong with DeJuan, then we're talking Enoch, and we're talking Josh Fryer. I mean, both those guys are going to have to step in, and this is a hellacious time to have any of that go on. And then the $1 million question: Jackson Smith and Jigba. You're just going to have to wait and see. I know I have my feelings. I'm pretty sure Tom's feelings are pretty similar on there, but it's only Monday, and a lot of stuff can happen. But wear your JSN jerseys to Ohio Stadium, but I'm not sure that you're going to see him out there playing offense, special teams, or anything. He'll definitely be there, but I'm not expecting to see him participate.
Yeah, we'll see. That'll be something that, along with the Blake Corum injury status, I'm not expecting to get a real in-depth update on that this week. Will be, it'll be a story we're talking about. I'm not sure we're going to have a lot of answers or definitive answers from the Michigan side on Blake Corum or Ohio State side on some of those other guys. But, one thing that is going to be another question that's going to get answered on Saturday is last year Ohio State on the defensive side of the ball really struggled against the run. Didn't hold up against that Michigan offensive line in that run game at all. They made changes on the defensive staff, brought in Jim Knowles as a result. The defense has looked much, much better this year, but this has been an 11-course appetizer, and then this is the main event. This is the entree, is playing Michigan. This is the game that he was brought in to fix. They brought Jim Knowles in to fix how this defense played against Michigan last year. That to me is outside of the injuries, I think that question, how will this Ohio State defense hold up against what will be by far and away the best rushing attack they've played all season? How are they going to hold up? That to me is maybe the biggest question other than those injuries.
And we can go back and we can look at the teams that Ohio State's played and that have been the run-heavy teams. And Ohio State played Wisconsin before. I mean, Wisconsin wasn't Wisconsin at that point. Paul Chryst was still the head coach. 2 weeks after is when he was let go and Jim Leonard was elevated to interim. And it looks like that tag may be taken off here at some point. They ran for, I think, just under 200 yards. Like 100 of those yards happened in the fourth quarter. A lot of it happened on a busted play where a freshman safety took a really bad angle. So people would be like, well, see, they've had the success there against Wisconsin. Well, slow your roll a little bit. That was not really the right Wisconsin team. I think conversely, though, there are going to be people that are going to take the Northwestern game and take that out of context too, where Northwestern ran a ton of Wildcat. They had Evan Hull. They had, the guy's name's escaping me, number 4. I mean, they had a lot of guys in that Wildcat position, and that's where a lot of that yardage came from. And they outrushed Ohio State by a couple of yards. They got close to 200 yards in terms of running in a game where there was really no prayer of being able to throw the ball. So don't look at the Wisconsin game on the one side. Don't look at the Northwestern game on the other side. Ohio State resides somewhere in the middle. This is what Jim Knowles was brought in for. This is the situation there. And to go back to an earlier question, if Michigan does not have Blake Corum, or Michigan has a 50% Blake Corum, it's going to change the complexion of a lot of things, because we're all, as I said, we're looking at a Donovan Edwards that has not been able to go. We're looking at a situation where there's just not a lot there. I mean, and this isn't going to be a case of people will be like, well, look at what Talia Tungavaloa was able to do as the dual threat quarterback. JJ McCarthy, Crazy Legs JJ can run the ball. JJ cannot sling it around. I mean, he can, anything inside that second level is pretty good right there, but he can't go vertical. So Ohio State could really tee off on him if Corum isn't there.
Yeah, and then on the other side of the ball for Ohio State, how well is Ohio State going to be able to run the ball? This is something that every year the Ohio State-Michigan game comes down to which team runs for more yards per carry. The team that does that every year wins the game. So Can Ohio State, who has run the ball sometimes and not at other times and struggled in short yardage at times, can they do it this week?
They're going to have to figure out a way to move the ball, to do some things to keep Michigan honest. Michigan is very good against the run. Chase Brown for Illinois, he started to heat up in the second half, had some success, certainly showed that there is a path there. I don't know if Trevion Henderson goes. The Trevion Henderson that we saw against Maryland will not have success against Michigan. We're talking about a car that was missing third, fourth, and fifth gear, didn't have, a lot of things, had zero aerodynamics. I mean, Trevion, a lot of people are out there being very critical of Trevion, and it upsets me because, I think he deserves some credit for going out there and gutting it out and trying to be a team-first guy. It would have been very easy to say, I'm shutting it down for this week. I can't do it. He just didn't have it. He didn't have it. Dallin Hayden had it. Now, Dallin Hayden is he's going to be going from playing rookie mode to All-American mode on NC2A 2022 going against the Michigan run defense. But I think there are a lot of things that Ohio State can do to help soften things up. I think C.J. Stroud has to come out and have some early success. I think that they have to sit there and make Michigan play sideline to sideline. And dare I say, might we need to see a little design Q run? I don't know.
Yeah, that has been a bigger part of the Ohio State offense the last few weeks. Feels like that is set, sort of, they know they were going to need it against Michigan. And the question is, have they established the fact they can do it? And then that now forces Michigan to respect it and they don't actually have to do it in the game, or do they have to do it this weekend? We'll all find out together on Saturday. So there are 4 storylines to follow. And I'm sure you're saying, what about the college football playoff? What about this? What about that? Don't worry. There will be plenty of stuff to talk about this week. We just wanted to kind of touch on, 4 that we're sort of looking at as some of the bigger ones heading into the week. And we're going to start talking about those Monday here in Ann Arbor. Jim Harbaugh's press conference, along with some of the other Michigan players. Who are those other players going to be? We don't know yet. I think we're expecting maybe Blake Corum before the injury. Now, will you talk to Blake Corum? I don't know. Will we talk to J.J. McCarthy? I don't know. We'll find out Monday, noon in Schembechler Hall. We will be there. We'll be streaming it live at youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. And of course, have all sorts of post-interview reaction. We'll probably do a live show. We'll see. We'll see if we can work out the logistics to do a live show.
It's cold out there.
Yeah, it is a little brisk outside, but we'll see if we can work out the logistics to do that. But we will have a ton of coverage from Ann Arbor all day Monday at youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle, and of course at BuckeyeHuddle.com. And then Tuesday, we're headed back to Columbus. We'll have full coverage of the Ryan Day press conference and all the Buckeyes talking about this game as well. And then lather, rinse, repeat, all the same stuff. We'll probably try and do a live show. We'll do a bunch of listener question shows, all sorts of content there as well. Again, youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle and BuckeyeHuddle.com. Maybe your best move right now as you are counting down the days, only 5 to go until the game, number 2 versus number 3. Your best move is to make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube channel and also make sure you are subscribed to BuckeyeHuddle.com. We're going to have a ton of coverage there all week long. Among the themes that we have not talked about there, this is one of the biggest recruiting weekends in potentially Ohio State history. You're bringing in a ton of guys. Obviously, this is a game a lot of guys want to see. So it's a big recruiting week. We'll have our recruiting guys on that. But it's obviously also a pretty significant game for this year's Ohio State team, a pretty significant game in terms of narrative moving forward. Ryan Day losing 2 games in a row versus Ryan Day bouncing back and beating Michigan and winning the Big Ten potentially and going to the college football playoff. This is a game that is going to be talked about for quite a while. So it might be a good week to sign up to be a member of BuckeyeHuddle.com. So you are fully prepared, know everything you need to know coming into that game. It's less than 50 cents a day. You'd kind of be a sucker not to do it. So that will do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.